So, ladies and gentlemen, we start off with the first panel discussion today. The theme is AI and machine learning for MSMEs. So, we have several experts in the panel who are actually providing services and also would like to largely for the medium and larger enterprises. But now we'll see how to customize these services for the MSME sector, meaning for the micro and small enterprises too. So I would start off with my colleague Vijay Konduru, who's here, Associate Director, Grant Thornton, who's providing services for the leather industry also extensively in Chennai region, with regarding to ML and AI. So he will be elaborating one on the interventions and how to extrapolate these interventions to a larger number of MSMEs through the Andhra Chamber also, and for the other with other associations in the region. Next, we also have the Dr. Ghosh, who's founder and CEO of Minerva Technologies, uh, and also with regard to application of AI/ML in enhancing productivity of MSMEs would be his major focus area of inputs. Saumil Shaji, my colleague partner from, will be joining uh, virtually, and will be focusing on the overall options for the MSME sector. The whole panel would be chaired by Narsimanji, uh, who will be providing from the Satwa Group, a major logistics player, on summarizing the interventions after a brief summary from my side, and on his recommendations too for extrapolating the initiative. So, just to start off the theme and the discussions, uh, we will start off with. So,
Can you hear
as
me?
we had discussed today morning, the question now is this is the fourth industrial revolution that we are looking at. And though Germany had initiated the whole initiative, and today in the context of global value chains, it is necessary to upgrade. One is to remain connected with the global value chain. It may be in engineering, Germany is number one there. It may be in machine manufacturing. It may be with regarding to light engineering. It may be in several other sectors, including textiles, leather, etc. So, question now is how to be competent enough to remain as partners with value chain leaders in developed countries in all these global value chains. Second one is with regard to the MSME sector in India itself upgrading to become global value chain leaders in these sectors. You know, most of the AI brains in India, AI and also the uh, uh, computer engineering related brains in India has evolved, and Indians are leading the space, right, from Silicon Valley to etc. To other regions. You go to Europe, every other IT employee would be from India, no other space. So how do we ensure that we leverage these new options and to take India to the next level is something that we'll be also discussing today. So we'll start off with the first input. Each panelist would be speaking for about 3 to 4 minutes. The first round of discussion, followed by another 3 minute of follow-up discussions as the theme evolves and the learnings come out. We'll start off with Saumil Shaji on AML and the options for the MSME sector initially. Over to you, Saumil.
Good morning, all of you. Is it audible? Can you hear me?
Yeah, very clear.
Oh, very good. Thanks a lot, ACC, for giving us this opportunity. And what a historic day for all of us to talk about this subject. And I'm sure by the end of this summit, we all will have a good news about Chandrayaan 3 landing. And very interestingly, the the subject what we are going to talk about, especially on AI, think about the autonomous navigation, which AI ML helps, to navigate on the kind of terrain which is, of course, for spacecraft on lunar surface, which is unknown. They do a lot of image processing. They take data from cameras, sensors, capture a lot of information and helps to for the spacecraft. It not only does, it also helps in resource identification, the kind of minerals. It also helps on a resource management, the power distribution, how the data transmission is going to happen. It does a lot of predictive analytics, if there are certain failures and all. So it's a very interesting day for all of us to talk about on this topic. And once again, thank you all to giving us this opportunity. Now let's come to our day-to-day operations, and most of us have seen the overhead tanks overflowing, earlier days, and which has stopped. most of the places, right? How? And that's where all this IoT sensors, all that comes and play. Let's take example of agriculture. Farmers in their farms when to supply the water. Now they can set time, frequency. Smart metering. We have seen the people come to our home, just do the reading of our meter, and immediately hand over the bill to us. We all must have used Uber, right? One day we see for same distance we pay 200 and another day it's 300. Yeah, it's talk about surge pricing. Even healthcare. I met one person from IIT Kanpur, and they incubate Nadi Pulse prognostic. What they do, they just put a sensor, they understand, and they talk about the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which really help us to keep our health up to date. Autonomous car is also a lot of rounds of discussion going on. Even Siri, Alexa, we have seen. And let me tell you my personal experience. I got a new car, and you will be surprised. One day I got an alert. When I saw the alert, the door was open. Immediately I called my daughter and said that the door is open. And that's the kind of different examples I'm talking about in our day-to-day life, which unfortunately, fortunately, we don't realize it. Now let's understand what is IoT. IoT is nothing but just interconnected devices with software and sensors to allow to collect and exchange data, right? What happens with this data? Because there's so many data comes and our typical Excel can't handle it, right? So it has to get analyzed to give us some insights, right? Now, once this insight comes, there where the artificial intelligence comes, where we look at certain parameters, certain trends, pattern, and help us to take decisions. And in certain cases, even without even human interface, right? Of course, there are people talk about AI and machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, but that's a separate topic. The question is how MSME can start this journey. Let me tell you, there's a bit of confusion about digitization, digital transformation, right? What is digitization? It's very simple. Your analog to digital journey. And again, to give a very simple example, earlier we have gone to bank to apply for a loan. We used to fill up a form, right? Today, what's happening? It's online. So instead of that paper flow, information flow, right? Most of the companies, they have ERP, CRM. Now, moving from there, what is digital transformation? Digital transformation is nothing but, our new business model. Unlock a new way of delivering value to customer to our enhance customer experience. Now, coming to pure manufacturing play, especially for MSME, let's look at each function. Say design. Today, with the CAD, the simulation, and you can create a prototype in a digital environment, which reduce your lot of cost, time, sales. Think about when you have a CRM with your analytics, you can get deeper understanding about customer behavior, customer preferences. Think about inventory, right? With the IoT devices and sensors, you can monitor stock levels, right? It helps in your inventory management system. It minimizes risk of stockouts. Quality. IoT does real time analyze the defects, the variations, and trigger for us to take a proactive action. Maintenance, what it does is just give up alerts, if there are chances of failure. Manufacturing, of course, a lot of areas in terms of robotics, automation, 3D printing, it helps us to increase efficiency. Customer service, you can have a now personalized customer service, and it will trigger potential customer issue in advance. So again, it helps. And at the end of the day, it all helps in data-driven decision making. Supply chain also people talk about, right? Visibility. panelist also sitting with the logistic, the logistic control tower. It gives real-time visibility about the truck movement. So all this, there are so many use cases, so many places we can think about, different ways to use this technology. Now, obviously, the challenge starts, right? The challenge starts first with the capex, and as per our start with, MSME, that's a challenge. Another is a skill gap because of you require that kind of a skill, talent to retain those talent. Those are another challenge. Integration, because what happens? You have old system, the compatibility issue starts. So that's where the challenge starts. That how I will integrate it. Dr. Carsten talk about security, data security. Yes, those are the threats. Over and about the change management, because one is a resistance, another is lack of awareness. That also stops us going through this journey. And over and above, let me tell you, the biggest challenge is a mindset. Because we think that, oh, I'm doing this business for 20 years, I'm growing, and I'm earning enough. So why to adopt, why to go about it? So I think that leadership, culture, and talent, if you make it, together, converge together, I think it will build a story for better adoption. And friends, it's not easy, right? We know Japan take 35, 40 years, China take 25 years to reach to the stage where they are. And today, of course, people talk about China. Now, we have to decide where we want to be in this journey. We can't play cost arbitrage anymore. Of course, there are reports suggest till 2050, India demographic is going to give us this advantage. But do we want to play that game, or we want to compete in today's world? And challenges are where opportunity lies, and we are happy to help, especially Madhumati ma'am talk about that cluster approach. We are happy to help ACC and their members wherever it's needed. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I hope I'm in time.
Thank you, Samalji. We'll go to the next panelist, Dr. Ghosh. So, Dr. Ghosh, on your inputs on enhancing productivity of MSMEs as well as other technology advantages through incorporation of MLM.
Sure, thank you very much. Very happy and privileged to be here. Um, I'll talk a little bit about the question that has been asked. But before that, I want to just say the MSMEs are the heart and soul of any economy, right? Like so, we generally talk about only big corporates, but MSMEs, so many of them are real heart and soul of the country and the GDP, right? Now, for earlier, when you used to talk about AI or Industry 4.0, we used to talk about only big companies, right? So, say Google, Amazon, Facebook of the world. And I have been fortunate to work for some of the big corporates as well. So, I worked at Disney, Sony, Target, and Grab, where I learned a lot of things. But then I realized, AI is so powerful and everybody can benefit from it. However, there are certain challenges why probably only some of the big corporates are using it very well, but it is not being adopted by the small scale industries or by individuals or smaller entrepreneurs. And here are the, if you want to really democratize the AI, we need to remove those challenges. So, what are these challenges? I think some of the speakers earlier talked about it and probably will have more discussion on them. But I'll call out the key challenges which everybody faces, especially small scale industries, if they want to adopt AI or Industry 4.0. So first challenge is of course the cost. I think we have been already having the discussion on that, right? So from the talent to the development of those systems, the productionizing them, right, or the infrastructure, it is costly, right? So cost is a prohibitive factor. So a small scale industry, a small entrepreneur doesn't want to spend crores of rupees or millions of dollars to develop a AI system, though they know it can benefit them, right? The second is, of course, time, right? So generally, what I have seen during my experience, so at Disney, I work for Hotstar, developing some of the systems for them, And again, when I joined Sony, we developed recommendation system for Sony Live. But what I saw that from recruiting the talent to understanding the problem, getting the data, then developing the product, testing the product, then implementing, it generally takes a long time, sometimes even years, right? And even after that, sometimes you may not see the results. And as a business man or an entrepreneur, you invest money, you invest time. If it takes 3 years, 4 years time to even give results, or sometimes you may not even get it, that's not the right investment that you want to make, right? So there will be a kind of not that dissonance will happen. And last one related to what I already discussed, effort, right? So along with the cost and the time, a lot of effort goes into the process, and then of course the question of ROI comes. So these are the key challenges why I think not everybody is being able to use it. I think as of today, everybody knows about AI. Whether we want to use AI or not is not a question, right? Everybody knows it can help us. But these are the few challenges that I saw when I was working in the industry. And then how do we solve these challenges, right? So the solution in my mind has to be something which is cost effective, right? So not everybody has to spend so much money to develop and use the solution. And ideally, it should be a ready to use AI product rather than everybody creating a custom model. If we have a ready to use simple AI product which is cost effective, then probably there is no question where all the MSMEs and others don't use that product. So with that objective, I started my company called Menava Technologies, which is an AI first company, and our vision is to create exactly what I mentioned till now, right? So we are a B2B company. We develop AI products for the business, but our objective is to create easy to use AI product which are like plug and play. So you know your problem, here is a product, you go and start using as soon as possible, right? So I'll talk about some use cases that we are developing and which I think MSMEs can also use. So let me talk about few diverse use cases so you get an idea what I'm talking about. Let's take one of the use cases for customers, right? So whether you are a manufacturer or retailer or other MSME, you will have customer. Your customer may be a business, a retail, or a B2C end customer. But generally what I've seen even in sometimes big companies, you don't understand the customer life cycle well, right? So if suppose a company is running promotions and like they have so many customers, let's take a Swiggy or Zomato, generally they have a budget and they say, hey, we'll spend this much amount on promotion and give 100 rupees or $5 discount to every customer, right? That's not the ideal way to go because every customer is different. How do you know if somebody is in the early of your life cycle or late of your life cycle or churn customer, your behavior and your interventions have to be different. And related to that, can you find out what is the lifetime value of the customer, right? So not just the value that they have given, but the entire value the customer is going to give in their lifetime with your company, right? So there are no techniques using which you can calculate customer lifetime value, create an automated customer life cycle, which can really help everybody who has a customer and potentially every business has a customer, right? So that is one of the use cases that we have built models on how to automate a customer life cycle, how to find customer lifetime value. Second use case, again, probably everybody will be able to relate to that all of you will be having sales, right? And once you have the sales, for all your planning, you need to forecast sales, right? So based on your products or based on your customer, you need to predict what my sales will be next day, next week, next month, next quarter, and so on. And traditionally, what I've seen, even in large companies, many a times people have an estimate, judgment, or they use maybe an Excel file, a small model with that, do a moving average. And even the advanced ones, so-called, they have moved to like statistical techniques like ARIMA. But these are kind of, we are still living in a prehistoric age because with the latest advancement in deep learning and AI, we have far better model which can give you far better results than any of what I mentioned till now in terms of forecasting, right? So one of the product we have built on forecasting where it is an easy to use product where you just go, we tell you what data is required to do the forecasting, you upload the data, that's it, right? You don't need to understand machine learning, deep learning, write a Python code, right? So that's on forecasting. Third use case, Mr. Narasimhan is sitting here, one of the largest logistics company here. So in logistic also, again, a lot of application of AI can be done, which traditionally has not been done. In fact, I was working for an e-commerce company, which was also having a logistic kind of operations, but there I saw, in terms of when the order comes, you decide which driver to assign, and then the driver checks the map and goes to the customer and delivers the order, right? But here AI can have a huge application. Let me call out only two of them. One is once you have a lot of customers, right? It can be a big customer or individual customer, and you have a lot of drivers sitting at different places. Now, how do you assign the driver, right? You don't have to do it manually. With AI, you can find the exact location of the driver, the latitude, longitude, like you can even say this exact, seat we are sitting at or exact seat you are sitting at. And based on that, I can find optimum, distance, time, etc. And based on that, I can assign the driver. And not only assignment of driver, once I have assigned the drivers, I can also do a route optimization. Google has now actually open source the maps dataset, and a lot of datasets are open. So I can find, okay, if I am in Chennai in this location and I have to move to Bangalore where I stay in the particular location, nobody has to do any manual calculation or check the map or anything. AI can tell you, okay, take this particular route for optimum time or cost and etc. Right? So those are a couple of applications in logistics. Then number 4, in terms of documents, right? A lot of you will be having a lot of documents, and many a times reading so much document is difficult. Probably even for this conference, probably you're reading a lot of content, right? And suppose you have documents of 100 pages, 200 pages, 500 pages, it's very difficult to read them. And we have gone through all of that. We have studied during our 10th, 12th engineering or whatever. We have studied so much. And you as businessman, you have to read so much. And it's sometimes very difficult. There's an annual report, there's a law coming in from the government, etc. So what latest AI, especially in the area of natural language processing, can do, and that is another product we have built, is you just upload your document or your set of documents or a folder, and it can tell you exactly what are the summary from the document. What in case of customer experience, it can tell you the sentiment, it can talk about emotions, it can also give the category of the document as a summary. And not only that, on top of that, using the latest, some of the chat GPT and other technologies, have also been a chatbot where you can chat with the document, right? So you upload a law or you upload another, annual report, it may be 100 or 1000 pages, and you chat with the document, tell me, hey, based on this new law that government has released, what will be the solution for this, right? So kind of document intelligence plus chatting with the document feature. And the last one I want to call out quickly, which is very close to my heart, is something where I have worked a lot, and that was primarily used in the online world earlier, especially in the case of media and e-commerce industry, which is something we call a recommendation system. In fact, if you use any OTT platform like Hotstar, Sony Live, or even Netflix, probably 70 to 80% of the consumption comes from recommendations. So what it is, basically you go to YouTube or you go to Netflix, you watch some content, it recommends you new content, or you go to Amazon, based on what you browse or purchase, it recommends you new product. And now the opportunity that we see, we're actually working with a retail client in the America, where we are bringing this kind of technology to the offline world. What do I mean? So basically in the online one, traditionally, yes, you get a lot of customer data, and based on that, you recommend new product or new service or videos to the customer. But what we have built already for the offline client is that, hey, in the offline world also, you may have similar problem. For example, you are a manufacturer. So one of the client we are working for, they are an apparel manufacturer, and they sell to other retailers, right? And now every month, first you have to find out which retailer should you go to, then what product should you sell to that retailer, and how many units you should sell, right? So traditionally, this has been done very manually. I have also worked in companies where people decide a top-down target. Okay, next month I'll do a sales of 10 crore, and this is how my distributors are, retailers are, and then divide the target and then push for the sales, right? But you don't need to do that. Using AI, you can find out for which particular client or retailer, what product should you sell and how many quantity should you sell. This can come from an AI-based recommendation system, right? So with that, I'll conclude my talk for this part, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. I studied Arima forecasting all that during econometrics thing in Cambridge about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
तभी भी कुछ समझ पे नहीं आया था, अभी भी नहीं. Anyway, but what we mean is, okay, let's come back to this question. We come to our own director, Vijay ji was coming all the way from Hyderabad. So Vijay ji has worked extensively with the leather cluster and enterprises here in Chennai region. So along with other inputs with regarding to AI and ML, a case illustration on the cost benefit of implementation in the leather industry would be very appropriate.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank the Andhra Chamber of Commerce for giving me this opportunity to talk about AI ML. So I was just jotting down few notes while the other speakers were talking about. And so primarily the major challenge was the threat of Industry 4. to MSMEs. Now, what do we mean by threat? So, there's a saying, I mean, when this Industry 4 was introduced in 2015 by Klaus Schwab, so he said that in the new world, it's not the big fish that is going to eat the small fish, it's the fast fish that is going to eat the small fish. So, that is what we have to imbibe when we're talking about Industry 4. And it's pretty confusing. I mean, for anybody trying to understand Industry 4. So, Industry 4 comprises of four or rather seven technologies. So, I'll talk about those technologies, and I'll also take two of them and take you through a couple of case studies or rather whatever implementations we have done. And these technologies are pretty flexible. So, if you have done it in one use case, it can be very easily replicated in the other industry and the process. So the seven major technologies are Internet of Things, which we talked about earlier. So Internet of Things is nothing but where you have a lot of sensors, actuators and all fitted to your equipment, devices and machines, and where these sensors and actuators send a lot of data at a very low latency. When I mean by very low latency is in matter of few seconds, a lot of data volume is pushed. So that is what we mean by Internet of Things. And when this lot of data is coming in, now how do we make sense of this data? So that is where your machine learning will come into play. So machine learning has a lot of algorithms, a lot of mathematical techniques, which will try to make sense of this data combined with the computing power that we have at our disposal in today's world. So when this huge computing power, when you talk about GPUs and all, when this GPU power is combined with algorithms and you're able to analyze a lot of data, a lot of images, that is where you make a lot of sense, a lot of inputs come from that. Now the third technology is the advanced robotics. So I mean, our understanding of robots is where we see in the large car manufacturing plants where you have high-speed robots. But now there is something called as a cobot. That is a collaborative robot, which can work hand in hand with humans. And I will take you through one case study where we have implemented a cobot technology and how it is it's a dual-use technology. So how you can use it across different processes. I will talk about that. Then we have artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing but where you are taking all this data, all these images, all this data that is coming in, how do you process it to derive insights? So you suppose there is a particular process. In that process, what are the parameters that are influencing the outcome of the process? So how do I determine those processes or the parameters? Once I identify the parameters, what is it that I need to do to influence the parameters in a autonomous manner? I mean, so there need not be a control. I would say there need not be an operator, a control room operator who has to change the parameters manually. So it can be automated. So AI can do this for you. So that is what artificial intelligence is about. Then we have cloud computing. Cloud computing, all of us are aware. So where all this data that is coming in, it is very impossible and it's very costly affair to store it on premises. So what people are doing is they are uploading it to the cloud, to your Google Cloud, Amazon web servers and all. So that is where the data is residing, and on top of that data, you can do all this analysis. Then you have AR and VR, that is augmented reality and virtual reality. So augmented reality is being used extensively in automotive companies where the workers on the assembly line, so they have special goggles in which there is an overlay of the assembly that needs to be done. So it is very easy for them to do this assembly in a faster and efficient manner. That is what is your augmented reality. And when you talk about virtual reality is similar to your gaming systems where you have virtual reality goggles. So it's primarily used in gaming, but it is being used in other industry applications also. Then we have additive manufacturing, which is nothing but your 3D printing, which we are all aware of. And finally, cybersecurity. So why cybersecurity is also an important technology is because with all this data coming in, it's everywhere. So how do you ensure that the data you are having, that is your proprietary data, that does not get sabotaged, like what Dr. Karsten was talking about in his address. So with these 7 major technologies which are part of Industry 4, So I will talk about two technologies. I'll talk about two case studies which have been implemented primarily in the agro sector as well as food processing, and this can be used in other sectors also. So if I talk about artificial intelligence, so let us take this example. So here there is something called as computer vision, where you have your day-to-day normal CCTV cameras which can be used to extract information. And this is the most cost-effective technology when you talk about computer vision. What we have done, I mean, in an earlier project that we have done for a client of ours, so they were having, I would say, a tanks. So what happens in these tanks is there's a lot of material that goes into it. So and it is soaked in the tank for a particular duration. So at the end of the soaking process, what will happen is the product will gain weight, and the weight it gains is nothing but the yield of that product. Finally, the final yield of that product. So what was happening here is there was a lot of manual intervention, a lot of operators on the floor who had to manually remove the tubs, put the tubs back, ensure that the material is soaked for a predetermined duration, and at the end of that duration that needs to be removed so that it does not get over soaked and the product gets damaged. So what we have done here is we have installed CCTV cameras, your normal 3,000, 4,000 rupees CCTV camera, and what it will do is it will take the feed from the so it will detect the time at which the tank was inserted into the machine, into the soaking machine, and it will also detect the time. It will also know at the end of what time it needs to be taken out. So 15 minutes prior to that, it will send out a alert to the floor supervisor saying that this tank number X is due to be removed in the next 15 minutes. So you assign or you allocate operators who can come and remove it on time so that there is no under soaking or over soaking. So this has helped that organization to realize a yield improvement of up to 5%. So 5% on a large turnover makes a lot of difference. So that is, and this is and the whole thing cost us maybe a lakh of rupees to implement. And the benefit or the return on investment was exponential. So this is just one use case. And this same computer vision technology can be applied across various processes. We need to understand where this can be used, and appropriately it can be taken up. And another thing I would like to talk about is the advanced robotics. That is a collaborative robot that I was talking about, cobots. So what cobots usually do is they are not high-speed robots like the ones you find in automotive assembly lines. So these are low-speed robots, but the advantage with them is they are not very dangerous. I mean, you need not put a barricade, you need not put a designated area where people should not come in. So this is like I can put a cobot over here and I can work right beside it. So it will work along with me. So it will improve the productivity of the human who is there right next to it. Suppose I'm doing an end of line operation where I'm packing cartons. So if I'm able to pack say 50 cartons per 1 hour, with a cobot I can do 75. So I'm increasing the productivity of the resource by 50% over here. So this is the kind of technologies that are available, and also it eases the work of the human because it will not become so tiring and so demanding. And ergonomically also you can save a lot of human labor on this. So these are few instances I wanted to share with you, and that's it sir from my end.
I think those are beautiful. The learnings that we had from all the three panelists. I think we could now come on to the chairperson, Narasimhanji, for his inputs before I give the summary. Over to you, Narasimhan.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we had a wonderful session to start with. The inauguration was good, and I would say this is very good. The session we had, thanks to Grant Thornton for putting together a set of panelists who are very technical and who give very simple inputs. I think that's what is required for an MSME sector. I think Professor Anand Padmanand started with the global value chain. I think this is what he started off with this. When you look at a global value chain today, the MSMEs play a major role just because they are not only suppliers for this major industries. Today you talk about Hyundais and Fords and Nissans and all that. You have hundreds and thousands of MSMEs who are tagged on to these major industries. But the time will come, these MSMEs, if you really ask them, do we need to go with 4.0? I would say the answer is yes. The classic example is we talk about ESG implementation, which is in parallel to IoT or 4.0. Today, the environment sustainable governance, which is becoming one of the very, very important factors. So when any foreign person who comes to India, for example, in our own country, right, and they look at the major suppliers, major vendors or major manufacturers or even major service providers, they do ask, it's not only that how much of implementation they have done on ESG, for example. They also ask a question, how much of your own suppliers, right, down the supply chain, how much of it is being implemented? That's so. The same thing will certainly happen to Industry 4.0. For example, on the chamber, we felt that this was a very need of the hour, and then we formed a special group, about 6 months back, giving a lot of emphasis on ESG. So the Industry 4.0 is what is really following. I mean, the chamber is going on to what is required for the industries, in that pathway. I think we had a very good session started with Samil, who talked about IoT, sensors, implementation agriculture and healthcare. He also talked about logistics control center, which is very important. See, the example he gave about logistic control center is what we have implemented ourselves, in our own industry. That has become a need of the hour for a reason that, when you talk about, again, the question comes to the cost, which even Dr. Ghosh mentioned about, the cost, skilling, time, etc. I think, the way the MSMEs could start off was very simple way. Go and identify the equipments or the tools which supports these IoTs, right? Which supports your, networking, which would provide, which will take you to the next level of Industry 4.0. For example, all the trucks, he mentioned about trucks, right? All the trucks and, optimization of truck routing, etc. Right? We have implemented. So we didn't do anything. We went to the truck manufacturer who said, who we insisted that they should provide the services, who provide the software. So you need not have that kind of technology today, by yourself. You don't need to develop that kind of software for yourself. But you can identify, even though you are an MSME, you can identify those vendors who provide this technology, who supports them, who also commit to integrate them with your own software, with your own homegrown software, what you are implemented in your own company. You talked about 60 lakhs ERP, etc. I agree with you. I mean, it's cost a lot. But you have a small software which you are running on your company, MSME company. You tell those vendors and they will come and they are willing to support you. They are willing to integrate this data and then pass on the data to your software, whom you can start analyzing. And we also talked about, the Dr. Ghosh very rightly mentioned about, the ready to use some of this, software and things like that. He also gave example of cell phone usage, very simple tools, how far the cell phones could be used for your market optimization and market reach. Right. I think, the Vijay also mentioned of course, he talked a lot about, the 4.0, but very rightly he mentioned, it's just not products who we are, we are all focusing a lot on 4.0, on implementation product side. Very difficult, as he said, like all SMEs today have already machines which are being bought by 20 years back, 30 years back. We cannot afford to reinvest, right, or reinvent any of these machines. But there are some machines like CNC machines where they've already bought. Those machines could be integrated, for example, right? Another important point which Vijay mentioned was the process optimization. The 4.0, also help. I mean, it also gives you enough leverage in optimizing your processes where you could save cost and time and money, right? So it helps a lot. So the 4.0 implementation is a gamut of, products and services which you have to look for without much of a cost as an MSME vendor. And I also mentioned about the ESG group which Chamber has formulated. After, I think, hearing all this, I would certainly go back to my Madam President and Executive Committee for forming a task force or a working group on 4.0, not only for our members, but for as an industry for MSME sector as a whole. Right. So this we would certainly take the help of F&F, who's here, who are always supporters. Thank F&F for all their support which they provided so far. I will certainly go back and ask them for their support. And we will certainly form this group and we will take the help of Grant Thornton, who have extensive experience in implementing 4.0 in similar sectors, MSMEs especially. So with these words, so once again I thank Grant Thornton for this.
Thank you, Goshi. We have 5 minutes more to go for the session. Just to summarize, we have been intervening extensively. In fact, the government of India has been supporting 3D printing initiatives and robotic training facilities also. There is the MSc Cluster Development Scheme, where 90% grant is offered by the government. We have implemented hundreds of projects across the country on this. So I remember there was a 3D printing initiative in the textiles cluster of Panipat. So the objective was to make basically uh, uh, re-engineer or reverse engineer Chinese textile machinery components. We have lots of clusters, but we are not competitive in machinery manufacturing in textiles, excepting in spinning mills in Coimbatore. All the other textile machines are imported, including from Germany. So to make ourselves more competitive than China, the objective was to reverse engineer Chinese machines immediately through 3D printing, so that we don't have to go in through the typical mold making initiate time, and immediately produce components and upgrade our machine manufacturing industry. So government of India is supporting this also extensively, 3D printing initiatives and clusters. Robotic training, this also has been implemented in several clusters, funded under the MSc CDP only for welding. So all this could be done. You don't need a team of highly specialized experts guiding and training the intervention. You can use it. It's robotic now, and through machines and through AI. So the whole training initiative itself, the time span has been reduced by about 70%, and the cost also by 70%. So what you find now, we come to the next question to the panelist. Uh, how dangerous is AI for manpower? That kind of thing. So the whole AI and ML was brought in by Germany, so that Germany could again come back. Germany and Europe could again come back into the manpower-related space in manufacturing. It was all going to a developing country due to labor cost advantage. So how do we ensure that it will not be a replacement of labor? That is one, manpower. Or what is the upskilling required? We have a separate session on this. Upskilling requirements for manpower in this context. So this I would like to pass on to Dr. Ghosh.
Okay, so this is a very controversial topic, right? We already talked a lot about the benefits of Industry 4.0 and AI. But I think with every technology, there are positives and there may be some negatives, right? Whether we talk about the atom bomb, it had probably some positives on nuclear energy, and now we're talking about AI. So of course, till now we probably talked about the positive side, but I think on the other side, and I'll not call it negative, we have not still seen how it will unfold, and I think it's very difficult to predict the future in this area. But my opinion is probably a little bit blunt in this thing. I'll not sugarcoat it, because I think the way the technology has evolved, what I have seen, right? So earlier, AI, and I think we talked about a lot of things where AI was good only with numbers, right? So we know that computers can do computations better than human. So this is one type of intelligence which was called logico-mathematical intelligence, right? Which deals with numbers and logic. So on that, computers are better, we know it. And we saw maybe within the 1980s, 90s, and 2000, there was a resistance that, should we use computers or not? In some organizations or banks, people said no. We don't want to use computers because it will take our jobs, right? So I think most new technologies have been like that. So probably it, destroyed a lot of jobs, but it created new jobs. I think with AI, probably similar thing will happen, but with one caution being that earlier, as I mentioned, AI was already very good with numbers, right? So, but a few years back when this question was asked, I used to say, yeah, AI is good with numbers, but there are a lot of things that humans are much better at, including, image, audio, video, text, right, which are non-numeric data. And I think one of our panelists just now pointed out they have used, computer vision to do things. What is computer vision? Nothing but using AI for images, right? And same thing is when I talked about document intelligence and all, we are saying that AI being used for text, where now if you want to write a research paper or want to write an assignment, you really don't need to write it. You just go to chat GPT and you type, what you need to write, and it will probably give you a better answer than, even after a lot of research you'll prepare, right? And probably some of you are using it and should be using it. So what I mean by that is that I think, as somebody rightly pointed out, is that AI will probably not replace us, but somebody using AI will, right? So here probably I think we'll see that probably some of you will adopt AI and probably do better than everybody else and do a lot of innovation, create new opportunities, new businesses. But at the same time, I don't think it's an option that where you can say, hey, I'm not going to use it. I'll use my old way of doing things. So I think yes, in terms of jobs, some jobs will be eliminated, starting with the repetitive ones. But I'm saying the caution I'm adding, because as of today, AI is good at image, video, audio. So I also think that even a lot of creative jobs may also be replaced. In Hollywood, if you see, the writers guilds are protesting now because they think AI may replace their job. But at the same time, we have probably need some regulation as well there, because I think one of the regulation in US also said that anything created by AI is not copyrightable. So if AI creates music, text, or research paper, you cannot copyright it, right? So that's probably gonna hinder AI applications somewhat. But yeah, I think I conclude with the comment that yes, I think AI will replace a lot of jobs, but will create new ones. And my advice will be very simple and blunt, that yeah, let's adopt these technologies for our benefit. Thank you.
In fact, one question ahead on this. My daughter's right now in Stanford, doing a program funded by Stanford and Berkeley on Berkeley, in fact, on existential risk. So it is basically Seri Maths, existential risk program under AI. So question now is, forget labor. Is that an existential risk for us humans through AI?
Yeah, I think that is also very much possible, right? Just like if you have watched the movie Oppenheimer, right? So when they were discussing about like whether to launch atom bomb or not, there was a question that Oppenheimer had, and he went to Einstein for the answer, saying that hey, once we taste the atom bomb, they did not taste it till that time, and they said once we taste it, we don't know. Probably, it may cause a chain reaction, it may destroy our world, right? And Einstein said, okay, I don't know the answer. You have to find out. And actually, only way they could find is by doing that test. Before that, nobody knew. So I think one of the risks of AI is also that, in fact, I think last week, Indian Defense Forces invited me. So they had their annual workshop in Gujarat in INS Valsura. And I was there talking about AI. Of course, it was very heartening to see that, our Indian Defense Forces, including Navy, Army, and others, are now trying to adopt and use AI. But related to that, one of the risks, especially if you're talking about existential, is I think very real. I don't know whether India is still creating it or not, but I think definitely some countries somewhere might be trying it, or they already have those prototypes where you have probably talked about already robots, right? When you have robots, you have computer vision, and you add AI to it, right? And it can become a weapon of like mass destruction, and which can operate on a way like controlled by AI, somebody sitting somewhere. And we never know, like we have all watched the movie Terminator, right? As they say, Skynet is coming, so we don't know. There is no, I think, news or evidence of it, but I think the technologies that we have, it is very much feasible to do.
So basically, what you mean is we control the machines and the intelligence also, it is fine. If not, we are going to be controlled by them, is it?
Wait for your daughter's report.
Done. Anyway, now let's come to business. We have Vijayji here and Shaumalji. How do we implement this in the MSME sector? In very practical terms, we have MSMEs here. 60 lakhs is what you said is the fee for the leather enterprise that we done here. Assuming enterprises, say in Andhra chamber, offer 20 lakhs and they have the same value chain. Can you evolve customized value chain solutions so that optimization to the service provider? You offer services like ERP. I remember if it's ERP for 10 different units, the cost is going to be the same. But ERP for leather, we used to do it years ago. 20 units together working with one service provider. The whole thing became very viable. So, like we do it for, we started off with ISO earlier. Then we brought in for ERP, then SA 8000, different social property and environmental thing. So, where this consortium-based interventions, which are value chain focused, would that be more viable to reduce the cost of adoption by the MSME sector?
So I think it's a very relevant question. So what we can look at is, our advice when anybody wants to start a technology intervention is to do a proof of concept. So proof of concept is nothing but a pilot. And since what we are trying to do here is to address the MSME sector as a whole. So if we have a particular sector which can come together and we can look at a common process which is common to all the companies in that industry. So that common process we can look at and do a sort of a pilot to get that confidence levels up that yes, this technology is viable, it is doable, and it makes sense for us. I think that would be the right approach to take his what my input is. Somil, you want to add?
And another is, this cluster approach, what Madam Madhumati also talk about. So we can definitely, who are the interested MSMEs, and we can create those cluster-based approach so that the cost, because as we all know, because we said 98% is micro. So yes, we understand and the challenges. But yes, there are now technologies become cheaper. See what it was 10 years back, and today even the barcode, people talk about that paper barcode of 35 paisa. So technology has also become cheaper, and that's why we suggest, recommend, or request MSME to adopt quickly wherever it's possible across the value chain. We are not saying do everything. As Vijay said, do proof of concept, take one process, do it. If you get ROI, invest that money again in another process. So that's how it really helps.
Done. So we are running out of time. We'll keep two questions for the experts in the audience and MSMEs in the audience. Please. Two questions per theme. We have several more themes, you're aware. And please let us know who you're directing the question to. Any particular panelist, or if it's an open question?
It is an open question. Actually, this cloud computing perhaps will help in the MSMEs to draw the resources from a common platform rather than individual MSMEs investing huge amount, especially in AI, which is very expensive and prohibitive. Perhaps what could be the impact or influence of cloud computing on resourcing for the MSME AI tools? And again, AI per se cannot be effective unless it is generative and augmented. Augmented AI and generative AI could only help in solving the real problems on the desk for MSMEs, because MSMEs are very peculiar type of industries where the resources are very limited, but the problems are plenty. And another thing is there should be an ethical code of conduct for artificial intelligent users and generators. And how far this AI material could be relied upon with regard to its authenticity and its capability. Even Wikipedia says it is not authentic. They add a class, a class. And another thing in respect of waste management in agriculture, AI could play a big role, particularly in India, where 15 to 20% goes waste, the produce of the agriculturists. Could you throw some light on these points? Thank you.
Sure. That's a very good question. So, coming to the first part of the question, where you're talking about pooling of resources to get the economies of scale on cloud computing, yes, that is doable, as long as the participants who are part of that cluster have an understanding regarding the data privacy and data security. So that is one part, and it is pretty doable. And coming to the artificial intelligence part, I mean, yes, like I was mentioning earlier, you can take a common process which is common to every company in that industry. So you can take the example of, say, like I was giving the example of a soaking process. So any company in that industry invariably has that soaking process. So you can identify a similar process in your sector, and we can use that artificial intelligence algorithms to solve the problem for you. And the last question, I think, which you had is with respect to the, so can you come again, the last part? Yeah, in waste management in agriculture. So I'll give you another case study. I mean, another project which we have done in particularly for the agro processing. So what happens here is there are all these large, or rather this is aquaculture example I'll give you. The large farms. Now in these large farms, there's a lot of fish and shrimp and all these different types of this thing is there. So how do you monitor the pond so that it does not get contaminated, or how do you identify early so that there is a fungal or bacterial infection that is spreading? So how do you do that? So that is where your computer vision will again come into play. So it will help you identify at a pretty early stage, yes, there is some anomaly, there are some differences that are coming up with respect to the regular pond and the pond which is being surveyed. And that is how it triggers an alert to you, and a person can go and figure out if it is actually an infection or a fungal infection and take the appropriate corrective measures to control it.
In fact, there was a farmer who will be joining us in the afternoon, likely. So they use drones to identify disease in paddy and other crops in Tamil Nadu very successfully. So, the minute the drone comes in one patch of the land, drones identify the disease, appropriate interventions are made, pesticides and appropriate interventions. So, this also facilitates early warning and management. And he's saying the cost benefit was very favorable. Next, one last question, please.
Not only that, just to add, even one of our client, we use drones for infrastructure companies because the project sites are in such a remote place to see the progress, what's going on, and all of that.
Absolutely.
Drones has helped so much. And very interestingly, as one of our speaker talk about, all these service providers are there. So you don't have to invest in drone. You don't have to have a people skill and all of that. There are people who is giving this kind of services.
But again, we'll come to the same cost benefit. I remember we had a drone seminar, Smart Agri.
Yeah.
So all the big players were saying drones will have to be transported on bicycles maybe. Now, the cost benefit nahi ho raha hai. Government of India subsidized 50%. Even then, Garuda, who's coming today afternoon, will say what are the problems by the farmer in adopting zones. So we'll have to customize drones on bicycles as service. Anyway, so that we'll discuss in the afternoon. One more question, please, quickly.
So the government of India already they cleared the data protection bill, DPDP bill, and for MSMEs when they are implementing the AI and ML, and they are investing a huge amount. And is there any implications on implementing, because the volume of data is huge, and when it comes to privacy of data, how to protect, how they are going to protect the data, and how the AI and ML will serve it?
So very good and relevant question, and I think I can share some thoughts. Actually, I mentioned that last week I was at the Indian Defense AI workshop, and in fact, the first speaker there, I forgot his name, but he is the CEO of Digital India, who is the person responsible for all the digital initiatives on Indian government. Okay, and there he actually talked about this bill as well as a lot of other things, including for MSMEs. So I think what Indian government is trying to do, I think as we look across the world, I think China is probably far ahead of everybody else, and US is doing pretty well. Israel is also up there. But I think India, like in some areas we have done very well, but in some areas we can do more. So I think what India is trying to do now is to bridge that gap. And one way to do that is, of course, to bring this data protection bill to protect the data. But in addition to that, another thing that Indian government is probably trying to do is that they're going to make a lot of data available. Because one thing we probably did not discuss in this panel yet is that even to do AI, you need a lot of data, which sometimes we take for granted. But in many cases, you may not have enough data to do that analysis. So what Indian government is doing, on the one hand, they are trying to protect the data which is private. So some data they'll make sure nobody has access to. But all other data which is not private, right? Say some data with logistics without identifying the individual person or something, they want to make it available across in their website so that everybody can access it, right? So I think, yeah, government is actually doing a lot of investment and a lot of initiatives, including making the data available, also making model available. One case study on that I can talk about is that in India is not a country, it's a continent, right? We have so many states, we have so many languages, and till now the AI, especially in terms of languages that we talk about, in 1/4 of the world, 1/4 of the world, right, in terms of population, right? So I think the AI, most of it, when you talk about, we take it for granted that English is the language of the world, which is not the case, right? We are here in Chennai, probably we are speaking English here for this conference, but a lot of people prefer to speak in Tamil. And you go to another state, they want to speak in Kannada, Bengali, Marathi, etc. Right? We love our languages and cultures. So I think one project that Indian government has done, which probably some of you can explore, is called the Vashini project, right? So using Vashini project, they are building these NLP algorithms and tools for all different Indian local vernacular languages, and using that, whether you want to create a chat GPT like application or even create a voice bot, right? It is possible. So they are making those APIs available for all the languages. So if you want to develop something in Tamil or Kannada or Telugu, you can probably use the Vashini API and create a chatbot or a voice bot using that. So I think definitely Indian government is doing a lot, but I think we have to also take the advantage of the things that they are doing, and together we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, on behalf of Andhra Chamber of Commerce, I thank all the panelists for a wonderful session we had today. Thank you once again. So, we would like to present a small memento to the panelists.